Hi, on this week's episode, I'm going to show you all the steps we take to prepare the engine to go inside the RS1 car. This is a GM 604 crate. It's based off a Chevy 350. It's a true, affordable, low maintenance, cost-effective race engine. It's built right from GM, and this is how it comes to our shop. Every one is identical. Once it gets here to the shop, we have to bolt on a whole bunch of parts, such as power steering, alternator, fuel pump, water pump, prep to carburetor, distributor. But one major change we do is we convert it from a wet sump to a dry sump. I'm going to touch on that in a few minutes. Now let's take a look at the process. The first step in the process is to install all the pulleys. That process includes installing the water pump and the brackets for the power steering and alternator. Next we do the carburetor. This includes installing road course floats. We also changed the jets. In the initial R&D stage of designing and building the RS1 car, we did a significant amount of testing to find out what jet size works the best. So at the time, we changed the jets in every car we built. Now every car runs the same size jet, so there's no advantage in the carburetor. Lastly, we install the fuel rail. Next, we flip the motor and start the oil pan change. We remove the stock oil filter and the stock pan. On a stock motor, there's an internal oil pump inside the oil pan. However, by switching to the dry sump system, we're going to remove this pump and we can install a brand new external pump in front of the motor. Now this is the Avion Motorsports 604 dry sump oil pan. This oil pan was custom designed by us and ordered. And what we did to return the oil to the tank, we have a pickup on the right and the left and the front and the back. So you want the oil to leave the motor as quickly as possible to go back through the pump into the tank. So it doesn't matter if you're going uphill or downhill or right or left, the pump is always sucking up the oil. Now we remove the oil pump and install the block-off plate. The block-off plate stops the oil from the new external pump of going directly back into the oil pan. One of the primary reasons to use a dry sump system is in a primary normal motor. The oil pump is inside the pan and all the oil is stored in the oil pan. In a dry sump system, we have the external pump and an exterior oil tank. So when you're on a racetrack and you're turning right and left, just like water would in a bucket, the oil's splashing around. And what happens is your oil pump can suck air, causing the entire system to lose oil pressure and could be terminally fatal to the motor. But with a dry sump system, you have the oil in the tank and the pump is always taking directly from the tank, guaranteeing you constant oil pressure. It doesn't matter the G's you have in the corner. In the design process of the RS1, just like any other vehicle, we ran into some issues. So one thing we had to do is raise the external oil pump up 1 inch to clear the steering shaft. So we had to modify the oil pump bracket to do this. Once the oil pump is installed, we make the oil lines and do the final fitting of the belts. One question I get asked a lot is why we run a mechanical fuel pump and not an electronic one. Well, at Avion Motorsports, safety is extremely important to us. And let's say you get an accident or something happens where you're in a situation the car comes to a stop. Well, as soon as you turn the motor off, it stops pumping fuel. But if you have an electronic fuel pump continuously putting fuel, and let's say you're in a wreck and your fuel line's busted, well, that electronic fuel pump can continuously fuel the fire even though the motor's not running. Now that's the complete process of how we assemble the engine. That process takes about 11 or 12 hours per engine. Now this engine is ready to go to dyno shop. As soon as we get all 5 of them assembled, they'll be going there in a few days to get broken in, make sure there's no leaks, and to ensure that there's no issues from the factory and all the horsepower and torque ratings are almost identical. Now make sure you tune in next week. We're gonna go through the complete suspension and brake system and show you how we build a custom rear end housing for the RS1 car. it.